Detective Inspector William Trave, of the Oxfordshire CID, felt the pain as soon as he'd passed through the revolving entrance doors of the Old Bailey and had shaken the rain out from his coat onto the dirty, wet floor of the courthouse. It hurt him in the same place as before, on the left side of his chest, just above his heart. But it was worse this time. It felt important, like it might never go away. There was a white plastic chair in the corner, placed there perhaps by some kind janitor to accommodate visitors made faint by their first experience of the Old Bailey. Now Trave fell into it, bending down over his knees to gather the pain into himself. He was fighting for breath while prickly sweat poured down in rivulets over his face, mixing with the raindrops. And all the time his brain raced from one thought to another, as if it wanted, in the space of a minute or two, to catch up on all the years he had wasted not talking to his wife, not coming to terms with his son's death, not living. He thought of the lonely North Oxford house he had left behind at 7 o'clock that morning, with the room at the back that he never went into. And he thought of his ex-wife, whom he had seen just the other day shopping in the covered market. He had run back into the high street, frightened that his successor might come into view carrying a shared shopping bag, and had ducked into the Mitre in search of a whiskey. Trave wanted whiskey now, but the Old Bailey wasn't the place to find it. For a moment he considered the possibility of the pub across the road. It was called the Witness Box, or some fatuous name like that, but it wouldn't be open yet. Trave felt his breath beginning to come more easily. The pain was better, and he got out a crumpled handkerchief and wiped away some of the sweat and rain. It was funny that he'd felt for a moment that he was actually going to die, and yet no one seemed to have noticed. The security guards were still patting down the pockets of the public, just like they had been doing all morning. One of them was even humming a discordant version of that American song, Heartbreak Hotel. A rain-soaked, middle-aged policeman sitting on a chair in the corner, gathering his breath for the day ahead, was hardly a cause for distraction. A sudden weariness came over Trave. Once again he felt weighed down by the meaninglessness of the world around him. Trave always tried to keep his natural nihilism at bay, as best he could. He did his job to the best of his ability, went to church on Sundays and nurtured the plants that grew in the carefully arranged borders of his garden. And sometimes it all worked. Things seemed important precisely because they didn't last. But underneath, the despair was always there, ready to spring out and take him unawares. Like that morning, halfway down his own street, when a young man in blue overalls working on a dismembered motorcycle had brought back the memory of Joe as if he had gone only yesterday. And fallen apples in the garden at the weekend had resurrected Vanessa stooping to gather them into a straw basket 3 autumns before. It was funny that he always remembered his wife with her back turned. Trave gathered himself together and made for the stairs. When he got time, he'd go and see his doctor. Perhaps the GP could give him something. In the meantime, he had to carry on. Today was important. Regina versus Stephen Cade, said the list on the wall outside the courthouse. Before His Honour Judge Murdoch at 12 o'clock. Charged with murder. Father murder. Patricide, it was called. And the father was an important man, a colonel in the army during the war, and a university professor in civilian life. If convicted, the boy would certainly hang. The powers that be would see to that. The boy. But Stephen wasn't a boy. He was 22. He just felt like a boy to Trave. The policeman fought to keep back the thought that Stephen was so much like Joe. It wasn't just a physical resemblance. Joe had had the same passion, the same need to rebel that had driven him to ride his brand-new 600cc silver motorcycle too fast after dark down a narrow road on the other side of Oxford. A wet January night.